I was just remembering how much I went through in Paris. The ups, the downs, the good things, the bad things, and just realizing like, wow, I went through a lot here and I just kept pushing through. Hey friends, it's your girl Tiff and you're listening to That's Real, a podcast where we learn and discover more about ourselves through stories, life lessons, experiences. So if you hear something that resonates with you and makes you say that's real, please share with a friend, family member on Instagram and tag me at It's Tiffany Davis. And also you can listen or watch this podcast, so it is available on my YouTube channel, or if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, you can show me some love by leaving a 5-star rating and review. I am so happy that you're here. Thanks so much for tuning in, and let's dive into this episode. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. And y'all didn't know I could sing, did you? No, I'm just kidding. I really can't sing. Like I really cannot sing, but I pretend I can. Welcome back to the podcast, friends. And first and foremost, let me just say thank you so much for all of the love and support around the launch of my podcast. So right now I am recording episode 2, which is crazy. I've just been so excited and encouraged by how excited you guys have been around me launching this. Like, y'all are the best. You really are. And I've actually been thinking about what we should call ourselves. Like, you know how Call Her Daddy has the daddy gang? I'm like, what should our community be called? And I was toying around with the name The Real Ones. Let me know what you guys think. Because I noticed in my videos, I'll be like and subscribe if you're a real one. But the more I started to think about it, I was kind of like, whenever I have an interaction with any of you guys, like honestly, when I was living in Paris and you guys would come up to me, I've also had a few people come up to me in LA, which has been really cool. Or if I'm just DMing you, you all carry this vibe, this energy where it's like, these are my people kind of thing. Like you all feel so good to be around. You all feel like the energy always feels so genuine and safe, and it really feels like you guys are a part of this community. And if I'm being honest, a community that I've always wanted to have, just a group of really cool, down-to-earth people who are so excited to try new things in life and learn more about themselves. And it's honestly not even just about that, but it's like this energy that I can't explain, but you guys all carry it. Honestly, every single one of you that I've met so far, I've felt this way about. So to me, it's like this real, genuine energy. So that's why I was like, I really feel like we are the real ones. So let me know what you guys think about that. Or if you have other suggestions, feel free to DM me, shoot me an email. You know, this is kind of like a free for all, and I want it to be something that we all resonate with. So let me know what you guys think. So in today's episode, I wanted to bring you guys back to when I went to Paris this past summer. I wanted to walk you guys through what that experience was like for me. I definitely felt all the feels and just want to talk through, like, do I regret moving back to the United States? Do I ever want to move back to Paris? I want to get into all of that. And also, wait, let me backtrack for a second because, you know, for those of you guys who are new to my community, you probably have no idea why I keep talking about Paris. So just to backtrack, I lived in Paris for about 4.5 years, and I decided to move back to the United States about 1.5 years ago. So Paris is definitely a place that feels like a second home for me. It's just a place where I grew and evolved so much. And going back this past summer, I honestly wasn't sure what to expect. So also let me give you the background on that and kind of like why I went back to Paris. So every year, or I guess typically every year, the company that I work for does an activation at the Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity. So this is different from the film festival. So this is basically more so a festival for like the marketing industry. So like brands come, we brought creators with us, and in our space, we just held a lot of sessions around the creator economy, economy, how brands and creators and platforms can work better together, things like that. So I was so grateful that I got to go for work. So because I'm the director of social, I went to just capture all of the social content for our time there. And we were there for about a week. But since I was going all the way to Cannes, so again, for those of you guys who are new here, I'm currently living in LA. So I moved here about a year ago. I'm a little shy of a year. I kind of just started this brand new chapter of my life. But anyways, because I was traveling from LA to Cannes, which is like 10-hour flight, I was like, I might as well make the most of this trip and just make a whole Eurotrip out of it. So I was like, okay, after Cannes, I'll go to Paris for a bit. I'll also go to Berlin because a really good friend of mine lives there. Then I also wanted to spend some time in London too. And then also a few of my coworkers and I were talking. We all decided to go to Ibiza together that summer. So I ended up being in Europe for 5 weeks, I think. Yeah, I ended up being in Europe for 5 weeks. So I just made a whole Euro trip of it. But anyway, so before I went to Cannes or before I went to Europe, I'm not going to lie, I was going through all of the emotions. One, of course, work was really busy and whatnot, just preparing for this event. But at the same time, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going back to France. I honestly hadn't been back since I left, which was about a year and a half ago. Or wait, no, I left in March of 2022 and I was going back around June. So, okay, it had been a little over a year since I left. Leading up to it, I was just kind of like, oh my God, is going back going to make me feel or wish that I had stayed for longer? Am I going to miss it so much that I'm going to want to move back? And I've already set up life here in LA. I was just kind of like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. And especially for me, because, if you watched my last podcast episode, you guys kind of know, when I set my mind to something, it's there's something in me that's you have to do this. You have forget what anyone else says. You have to do this. And I was like, oh my God, watch me go back and love it again. And then start the process to figuring out how I can move back there. I was like, God, what's it going to be like? So I just wanted to share that with you guys. So you kind of can get a sense of the headspace that I was in before I got there. And then we can compare that to how I felt when I was actually there. So I traveled over to Europe with a coworker turned friend. Let me just tell you guys, if any of you decide to fly internationally from LAX, give yourself so much time. Okay. Give yourself more than enough time. Cause my friend and I got to the airport. We thought we had a good amount of time. We're over there chatting it up, eating at PF Chang's, enjoying our lives, whatever. We looked down at our ticket and it was about to board, and the plane was about to board in I think 20 minutes, and we were on the opposite side of the airport. So those little carts at the airport that people are driving in and will bring you to your gate. So I see one of those and I'm like, oh my God, girl, let's get on one of these carts. It'll get us there faster than if we walk. We both get in the cart and I'm like, why is this moving so slow? Painfully slow. And that feeling when you're in a rush to get somewhere and everything around you is moving so slow and you're like, what is going on? That is literally what was happening. And we're panicking, we cannot miss these flights. People are expecting us in Cannes at a certain time. We have to set up the space, all of the stuff. So we're still on the cart. We're still at the cart. And when I tell you this cart was going so slow, I could have walked faster than this. And then it came to a complete stop and I was like, oh no, not today. We're getting out of this cart. So we get out of the cart and we start running. We're both sweating. Okay. We hear over the loudspeaker them calling people to a certain gate. And both of us looked at each other we know they're about to call us. It was such a hot mess. The stress that came with catching this flight. So we're freaking out. We're running, panting, sweating. We finally get to the gate and they hadn't even started boarding yet. And I was like, God really came through. Okay. God really came through. Because if we were to have missed that flight, I honestly don't know what we would have done. So thank God all of that worked out. The flight was fine, long, but fine. So then we finally land in Nice, because I believe Nice is the Nice airport is the closest airport to Cannes. And then everyone usually just Ubers to Cannes. But we land in Nice, and thank God for AirTags. You guys, if you're someone who travels a lot and especially travels internationally, get yourself some AirTags. And I'm so glad that my friend remembered to get these. She got like a pack of them and just let me borrow one of hers. Because of course, when we landed in Nice, we noticed that a few of our bags got stuck in Paris and didn't make it to Nice. So I probably would have been panicking if I didn't have those AirTags and didn't know where my bags were. But yeah, so just thank God for those AirTags. So anyways, I was like, okay, well, like, let's go talk to an airline rep to figure out our bag situation, how they can get them to us. So I was like, whipped my hair and was like, I got this. Okay. I was so proud of myself because I was able to have a complete conversation with a guy in French, and we were able to figure out our bag situation. And my friend was just looking at me like, girl, you speak French. It's so funny because for me, and especially when I lived in Paris, I was so shy about speaking French. Like, I was really insecure about it. And it's not like I didn't know any French, like when I lived there, I definitely knew enough to get around and whatnot. But I always just felt like insecure about it because I was always around people whose French was so good, like French people or, good friends that were married or had French boyfriends for like a super long time. So they just, caught on. And, for me, I took French lessons every single year that I lived there. But that language, listen, that it's a hard language. And also what I found, and I think what also made me a little insecure, was that whenever I would go to order something, like if I was at a restaurant or something, I would order in French, and the person, like the waiter, would always respond back in English. Always. It would always happen. Granted, I'm sure they were picking up on my English accent, but I was like, maybe my French isn't that good. But, my French friends told me that a lot of times French people want to practice their English. So when an English speaker comes along, they're usually like, oh, this is my opportunity to practice my English. So I think I just ran into maybe that. And I'm not saying that's like all French people. I think some were just like nice and saw that I was struggling, because with French people, I will say that I found if you start your conversation in French, at least trying, and they kind of get the sense that you're struggling, they'll help you out and respond to you in English. But it would happen to me so often, and I was just kind of like, it just made me feel like really insecure. And honestly, anytime people would ask me like, do you speak French? I'd be like, a little. But when I whipped out my French at the Nice airport with the airline rep, I was like, you go girl. Okay. It really just came back to me, and I was so proud of myself for that moment. So I just had to share that. And it's also interesting too. So when I was in Paris and was using my French, one of my French friends was like, Tiff, you speak French. You did not speak French this much when you lived here. I almost feel like it was like a confidence thing. I don't know if it was because I knew I was only there for a little bit of time. So I was kind of like, oh, whatever. I'm just going to say what I know. And if it comes out bad, it's fine. Versus when I lived there, I feel like it was the perfectionist in me that was like, oh, you have to speak it well. You've lived here for this amount of time and whatnot. Meanwhile, I had friends that had lived there for like 8-9 years and barely spoke French. Okay. So I really tried, guys. I really tried, but I honestly think it was a confidence switch. I ended up realizing that I know a lot more than I thought I did. So that was kind of like a nice little thing that happened. So anyways, my friend and I, we finally get to Cannes, and we finally got our bags too. But oh my God, it was kind of a hot mess. So, I mean, mine was okay, because I always travel with the hard suitcases, but my friend, so one of the bags that she had was like a duffel bag. I don't know what happened, but it literally looked like that duffel bag got beat up, like completely beat up. Like, it honestly didn't even look like the same bag. And it was also all wrapped up in plastic. It was a hot mess. She had to get a new bag. She had to get a new bag to go to her next destination. But we did get to Cannes safe and sound. And for me, I was just so grateful to be back in France. Honestly, it's also so crazy how life comes full circle. Like a little over a year ago, I was miserable leaving Paris, had no idea what my life was going to look like after. And then I'm coming back for work. Like what? How does that happen? And the last time that I was in Cannes, this was back in 2021, I just like booked a solo trip. It was a little after I had just gone through like a really bad breakup and just wanted some time to myself to like experience something new, do something that was a little bit outside of my comfort zone. Because when I went in 2021 to Cannes, it was the first time I had ever done a solo trip, just like completely by myself. So it was also just like a really nice feeling of wow, like the last time I was here, I was in a completely different space. I was feeling so unsettled. I had kind of just gone through a major breakup. I was almost kind of like finding myself again. Okay. And then being back with a whole new life, you know, new friends, new coworkers, new job. It was a really cool feeling just to see how much I had grown since when I was last there. So yeah, I was so happy to be back in France. You know, just little things like the food, for example. Okay. Here in the United States, I have the worst gluten intolerance, the worst dairy intolerance. Like I literally cannot touch it or I get super, super sick. Over there, I can eat everything under the sun. I still try and stay away from dairy because even over there, sometimes it makes me break out or I just don't feel that great. But I mean, I had a cheese pizza over there and I was completely fine. Like, it's just so wild how different the quality of food is between France and the United States. Like, it's insane, but I always feel so much better eating in Europe than I do here. And not gonna lie, even here in the States, I don't know if any of you guys have developed this over the years, but I feel like I'm becoming more intolerant to sugar too. So like, there are times where here in the States, I'll have something with a lot of sugar and my body just feels so inflamed. Like my joints hurt, my body just aches, and it's the worst feeling. Over there, I can eat pastries, I can eat cake, I can have ice cream, I can eat all the things and I'm completely fine. So the first thing I was excited to do when I got to France was eat that food. Okay. And especially the bread. There's just honestly nothing like French bread. So again, I was in Cannes for work. So we spent honestly every single day working. We worked a lot. And then after Cannes, it was time to go to Paris. So, oh my gosh, I had all the feels when I landed at CDG. So the Charles de Gaulle airport, which was like when I lived there, it was like the main airport that I was flying in and out of. And when I landed, I was just like, oh my God, girl, like you're back. I was excited. I had butterflies. I was also nervous because of what I shared earlier. Like, am I going to fall in love with it all over again and want to move back? Okay. So I land, I find a taxi to take me to my hotel. And usually I would get an Uber from CDG, which is what I would recommend over getting a taxi. But something was going on with Uber. Like I couldn't find one, or like it was going to take a long time for one to come. So I just decided to hop in a taxi. What I'm about to share with you, it is not representative of all French people. I know that for whatever reason, French people get a bad rep of being rude and whatnot. I will say, and if you have watched any of my YouTube videos, I have met some of the most wonderful French people, and I can say that that is not true for all of them. I think like in every culture, you have nice people and you have not so nice people. But I also do think that, and I really felt this when I was living here, that the French, they're just a lot more real and a lot more honest. And I do think that in America, we're kind of raised to be the nice ones, the friendly ones, versus just being like real, honest and true about our feelings. And it's something that honestly, since living in Paris, it's something that I've been trying to break free of. I would say, you know, I'm definitely a work in progress when it comes to this. Again, I think just when you're conditioned to operate a certain way, sometimes it takes a while to shake. But anyways, I just wanted to share that before I say what I'm going to say, because I don't want you guys to be like, oh, it's just the French way, because I don't think it is. I think that this taxi driver was rude. So anyways, I'm getting into my taxi. I'm all excited to like go back to my hood because I decided to book with a hotel that's in the neighborhood that I used to live in the 18th. So I get in the taxi and I'm like, you take card, right? He's like, yeah, no problem. It's fine. We're driving off and he goes, but cash is better for me. And I was like, oh, well, I don't have any cash on me. And he's like, oh, well, we can stop at a bank. And I was just kind of like, no, you told me you accepted card. And he was like, oh, well, card is better for you. Cash is better for me, blah, blah, and starts going on a tangent. And I was like, excuse me, sir, I can get out of the cab and get into a different one. Like, that's no problem for me. And then he shut his mouth and kept driving. Sometimes you just gotta, put your foot down a little bit. So anyways, I was kind of annoyed with that. But the second we like drove up to my neighborhood, OMG, I had all the feels. I had all the feels. When memories just start rushing back to you, that's exactly how I felt just being in my neighborhood again. So he drops me off and I had about an hour before I could check into my hotel room because I just got there a little bit early. So I just decided to walk around and I walked over to my old apartment in Paris, which you guys know I loved that apartment. I really loved that apartment. So I'm back at my apartment and it's so crazy. Like, I remember the gate code. They hadn't changed the gate code. I really wanted to go up, but I was like, let me not bother these people. Like, what do I look like ringing their bell and being like, hey, I used to live here. Can I see the space? Like, no, they're going to be like, girl, who are you? So I just sat my little behind outside and I'm not going to lie, I was very emotional. It was this feeling of, wow, I can't believe how long I lived in Paris for. Also this feeling of, even though I left and started, a life somewhere else, it still really feels like home. Like, it honestly just felt like I had gone on vacation and came back home to Paris. I was kind of getting those feelings, but at the same time, I could see clear as day how much I had grown and evolved since living in Paris. Like, I felt like me, but like a more evolved version of me. And I was just remembering how much I went through in Paris, the ups, the downs, the good things, the bad things, just realizing like, wow, I went through a lot here and I just kept pushing through. And sometimes I also feel like it takes you coming out of a situation just to see how much you went through. Because I feel like sometimes when you're in a situation, it's like you just have to keep going and things keep coming your way, but it's like you just have to keep pushing forward. It's almost like you're in survival mode, right? Versus when you're on the other side and you're more calm and your nervous system is a bit more regulated, you're like, wow, I can't believe I was going through, whatever I went through on a day-to-day basis. So I was definitely feeling very grateful for where I'm at now in my life, and also just so proud of myself for handling a lot just on my own while I was there, and also just feeling grateful for knowing, accepting, and acknowledging when it was time for me to close that chapter and start a new one. Because it definitely wasn't easy. Like, I was feeling in my gut like it was time to leave Paris, but I was really afraid to pull the trigger. And when I finally did, it felt like a weight had been lifted off of my shoulders. Like, even though I love Paris and was so grateful for my experience there and learned a lot, it was kind of like, it's time for something new. So in that moment, that moment where I'm back in this apartment that I lived in for however many years, there were so many memories and whatnot. It definitely felt like, wow, this was a beautiful chapter that I needed to grow in the way that I needed to grow. But at the same time, I'm so grateful and happy about the chapter that I'm in now. Honestly, like that's really how I felt. And this is literally, again, within like the first hour of me being back in my neighborhood. Okay. So these were just kind of like my initial feelings when I first got to Paris. What was also so special, something that happened that day, or honestly right after, was I was walking around the neighborhood and noticed that the hairdresser that I used to go to was open. I remember when I had left Paris, I was so sad because my hairdresser was in Haiti. She didn't know that I was leaving. And this is someone who I would like go, I used to go get my hair done with her every single month. And I just felt really sad about not being able to say goodbye to her. And I remember trying to get in contact with her, but I think when she was in Haiti, her French phone was shut off. So it was just like this whole thing. And I remember being really sad about it. So anyways, I decided to stop in my old hair salon and my hairdresser is there. We literally both looked at each other and started bawling, crying. Like it was a whole thing. Like we were both unwell. For me, it was such a beautiful moment too, because again, my hairdresser and I come from like completely different backgrounds. We don't speak each other's languages that well. So she could speak some English and of course I could speak some French, but not at the capacity that either of us could speak our languages, So it was such a beautiful moment of like, wow, we share something so special even with not knowing each other's languages perfectly. And it was just this feeling of, wow, like this is what true connection is. This is what true connection is. And the more that I thought about it too, that's what made Paris what it was for me. It wasn't just being abroad or having the new experience, which I will say was amazing too. But what made Paris what it was for me is the people that I met there and the connections that I made and the people that helped make Paris feel like home. And if I'm being honest with you, it's not like I had a ton of friends when I was over there. There were a lot of times where I felt really lonely. And I don't know if I'll get into all of that in this episode. I'll probably get into that more in another episode, but just seeing those familiar faces, like going to your favorite cafe and seeing the same waiter, going to your hair salon. Oh my God, there's this other restaurant that I'm like literally obsessed with there called La Creole. And I remember I used to go there so much that whenever I went, they would be so excited to see me, like the owners, like it just became a thing. And that is what I truly missed about Paris. And, over and above just like seeing familiar faces and whatnot, it was also so good to go back and see my friends, like these people who held me down during some crazy times in Paris. It was just so nice to be able to see them again. And again, just this feeling of, wow, like I haven't seen you in over a year, but it literally feels like nothing changed. And even for them, they were like, Tiff, it's so crazy. Like it feels like you still live here and we just haven't seen you in a while. And that's kind of the feeling that I was getting with them too. And I think that that's how you got some real ones around, when the energy just feels pure and good and you vibe together again, like that's how that's definitely how So that trip was, I spent a lot of that trip just like reconnecting with my friends and hearing what they'd been up to. And honestly, I'm trying to get a few of them over here to LA to visit for a little bit. Oh, I would love that. I would love that. And it's so funny too. I feel like vlogging in Paris just came a lot more naturally to me than it does here. Like even when I was just there over this past summer during this trip that I'm telling you guys about, it was so easy for me to just whip out my camera and vlog. Like I was doing it no problem. I don't know if it's just because it's where I started creating content, so it just feels a little bit more easy and natural. But here in LA, I find myself getting a little shy. And it's funny, right? Because in LA, I feel like there's so many content creators and so many people doing this, but I don't know why. I feel like I'm just like a little bit more shy doing it over here than I am, not even just in Paris, but in Europe. I was so quick to pull out my camera. I don't know what it is. But a time was had in Paris. And I would say just how I'm feeling about it right now is, Paris will always have a special place in my heart. It always will. I feel like it's, it will always be one of the most transformative chapters of my life. It's funny. My therapist at the time when I was living in New York City had said to me, you are going to go to Paris and you are going to come back a different person. You are not going to be the same person. Like experiences like those don't leave you unchanged. But I was like, what does she mean by that? I'm going to be the same person. It's fine. But no, when I tell you living there, it's like I gained a newfound sense of independence because there's just so much you go through on your own. I mean, for one, I moved there, no friends, no family. And I kind of, in a sense, discovered my own little family in Paris. And I would say, especially through my MBA, I truly met some lifelong friends during my MBA. And I just think and I'm sure you guys can relate to this, but when you are put in a situation where you just have to figure things out completely on your own, especially when you're in a foreign country, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about what you're capable of. And just being back there, I was very much just like, wow, little Tiff, who moved to Paris in her 20s, she had no idea. She had no idea what was in store, but she did it. She did the damn thing. She really did. So for any of you guys who have gone through a situation where you've had to just completely figure things out and learn to survive in a new environment, I applaud you, because it is not easy. And for any of you thinking about moving abroad, you're going to love it. You're going to have the time of your life, but there's going to be, there are going to be some times that make you question whether or not you made the right decision. At least that was my case. But overall, it will be life-changing and it will be worth it. But I say all of this to say, do I regret moving back to the United States? Not at all. For me personally, I needed this new chapter of my life to happen because I was feeling so stuck with where I was in life. When I was living in Paris and at the time that I moved, especially, I was just feeling so stuck. And now that I'm in the States and kind of like in this new chapter, I feel a lot more grounded and I feel a lot more settled. And then there's always the question of, do you see yourself moving back to Paris? I'll never say never, because who knows, maybe there'll be a point in my life where I feel really called to moving back. But right now, or in the near future, I don't think so. But what I would like to do is spend like a good chunk of time there every year. Like, I think it could be really cool to like spend a month there or a few months there and just travel throughout Europe. So I could definitely see myself going back for like an extended amount of time. But right now, I like having a home base in the States. And I also think that there are just like little things that moving back, I'm like, wow, this is so easy compared to what I had to deal with in France, just because this is my home country. It's just, I feel like I'm in a flow right now, but I could definitely see myself going back for a chunk of time, just because I still feel connected to it. I still feel like it's my home away from home. So I'll definitely be back. I'm not sure when, but your girl is definitely going to be back in Paris at some point. So yeah, guys, overall, going back to Paris was a 10 out of 10. I'm so glad I got to go back and do all of my favorite things, see all of my favorite people. It's almost like my soul needed it, if that makes sense. Like my soul needed to go back to Paris and have that experience for sure. And I'm excited to go back, when it feels right and when that time comes, and share more of my adventures in Paris and beyond. I also just want to travel more in general. Like now that I feel just more settled into life in LA, I definitely want to look into planning some trips because of anything, I feel like that's kind of what I've been missing. I've just been missing just being in a new culture and having these little adventures and seeing new places. Something that I genuinely love to do. And I'm so glad that I had that month or so of just exploration and travel and being able to do that. But I see how my soul just like craves it and needs it. So I have a feeling I'll be traveling in the near future, and I will definitely be taking you guys along with me. So guys, that's all for me. Oh my God, I feel like I've been rambling so much. I'm going to have a field day editing this episode. But that's my trip to Paris in a nutshell. And I definitely have to make a few more episodes on the rest of my travels. I did film a lot when I was abroad, so the vlogs are definitely coming. Can't wait for you guys to see what I was up to in Europe this summer. But thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, for listening, if you're listening to this, it's always a joy to chat with you guys. Thank you as always for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye.